Hi, welcome to Abundance Fountain. It's Miles here. In this episode, I'm doing the third installment from Awaken the Giant Within by Tony Robbins, where we're exploring the power of questions. And in this particular installment is how questions work. And there's three specific things that good questions do to help us on our path to abundance. Stay tuned and get ready for some good information. Here we go.
How questions work. Questions accomplish three specific things. Number one, questions immediately change what we're focusing on and therefore how we feel. If you keep asking questions like, how come I'm so depressed, or why doesn't anybody like me, you will focus on, look for, and find references to back up the idea that there is no reason for you to feel depressed and unloved. As a result, you'll stay in those unresourceful states. If instead you ask, how can I change my state so that I am feeling happy and I'm being more lovable? You'll focus on solutions. Even if your brain initially responds, there's nothing I can do, but like Stanislavski Lek or W. Mitchell, you persist with a sense of certainty and expectation in spite of it all, then eventually you will get the answers you need and deserve. You will come up with authentic reasons for feeling better, and as you focus on them, your emotional state will immediately follow suit. There's a big difference between an affirmation and a question. When you say to yourself, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy, this might cause you to feel happy if you produce enough emotional intensity, change your physiology, and therefore your state. But in reality, you can make affirmations all day long and not really change how you feel. What will really change the way you feel is asking, what am I happy about now? What could I be happy about if I wanted to be? How would that make me feel? If you keep asking questions like this, you'll come up with real references that will make you begin to focus on reasons that do in fact exist for you to feel happy. You'll feel certain that you're happy. Instead of just pumping you up, questions provide you with actual reasons to feel the emotion. You and I can change how we feel in an instant, just by changing our focus. Most of us don't realize the power of memory management. Isn't it true that you have treasured moments in your life that if all you did was focus on them and think about them, you'd immediately feel wonderful again in this moment now? Questions are the guide to those moments. If you ask yourself questions like, what are my most treasured memories? Or, what's really great in my life right now? And you seriously consider the question, you'll start thinking of experiences that make you feel absolutely phenomenal. And in that phenomenal emotional state, you'll not only feel better, but you'll be able to contribute more to those around you. The challenge, as you may have guessed, is that most of us are on automatic pilot. By failing to consciously control the habitual questions we ask, we severely limit our emotional range and thus our ability to utilize the resources at hand. The solution? As we covered in Chapter 6, the first step is to become aware of what you want and discover your old limiting pattern. Get leverage. Ask yourself, if I don't change this, what is the ultimate price? What will this cost me in the long run? And how will my whole life be transformed if I did this right now? Interrupt the pattern. If you've ever felt pain, then been distracted and not felt it, you know how effective this is. Create a new, empowering alternative with a set of better questions, and then condition them by rehearsing them, and they become a consistent part of your life. A skill of power. Learning to ask empowering questions in moments of crisis is a critical skill that has pulled me through some of the toughest times in my life. I'll never forget the moment I discovered a former associate doing a seminar and claiming credit for material I had developed, word for word. My first impulse was to ask things like, how dare he? How could he have the nerve to do this? But I soon realized that getting involved in these kinds of unanswerable questions would only whip me into a frenzy, creating an endless loop out of which there seemed no escape. The guy did what he did. I realized I should simply allow my attorneys to apply the pain pressure principle to straighten him out. So why should I have stayed in an angry state in the meantime? I decided to move on and enjoy my life, but as long as I kept asking, how could he do this to me, I'd remain in this negative state. The fastest way to change my state would be to ask a series of new questions. So I asked myself, what do I respect about this guy? At first my brain screamed, nothing. But then I asked, what could I respect about him if I wanted to? And finally I came up with an answer. Well, I've got to admit that he's not sitting around passively. At least he's using what I taught him. This made me laugh and definitely broke my pattern, enabling me to change my state, reassess my options, and feel good about their pursuit. One of the ways that I've discovered to increase the quality of my life is to model the habitual questions of people I really respect. If you find someone who's extremely happy, I can guarantee you that there is a reason. It is that this person focuses consistently on things that make them happy, and this means that they are asking questions about happiness. Find out their questions, use them, and you'll begin to feel the way they do. Some questions we will simply not consider. Walt Disney, for instance, refused to entertain any questions about whether his organizations could succeed or not. But that doesn't mean that the creator of the Magic Kingdom did not use questions in more resourceful ways. My grandfather, Charles Shows, was a writer with Disney before he went on to work with Hanna-Barbera, developing such cartoon characters as Yogi Bear and Huckleberry Hound. One of the things he shared with me was that any time they were working on a new project or script, Disney had a unique way of requesting input. He designated a whole wall on which he would display the project, script, or idea, and everyone in the company would come by and write down the answers to the question, how can we improve this? They'd write down solution after solution, covering the wall with suggestions. Then Disney would review everyone's answers to the question he'd asked. In this way, Walt Disney accessed the resources of every person in his company, and then produced results commensurate with that quality of input. The answers we receive depend upon the questions we are willing to ask. For example, if you're feeling really angry and somebody says, "What's great about this?" you will not be willing to respond. But if you value learning highly, you might be willing to answer your own questions of, what can I learn from this situation? How can I use this situation? Your desire for new distinctions will cause you to take the time to answer your questions, and in so doing, you'll change your focus, your state, and the results you're getting. Ask yourself some empowering questions right now. What are you truly happy about in your life right now? What's really great in your life today? What are you truly grateful for? Take a moment to think about the answers and notice how good it feels to know that you have legitimate reasons for you to feel great now. Number 2, questions change what we delete. Human beings are marvelous deletion creatures. You and I have so many millions of things going on around us that we can focus on right now, from the blood flowing through our ears to the wind that may be brushing against our arms. However, we can consciously focus on only a small number of things simultaneously. Unconsciously, the mind can do all sorts of things, but consciously, we're limited to terms of number of things we can focus on simultaneously. So the brain spends a good deal of its time trying to prioritize what to pay attention to, and more importantly, what not to pay attention to, or what to delete. If you're feeling really sad, there's only one reason. It's because you're deleting all the reasons you could be feeling good. And if you're feeling good, it's because you're deleting all the bad things you could be focusing on. So when you ask yourself a question, you change what they're focusing on and what they're deleting. If someone asks you, "Are you as frustrated as I am with this project?" Even if you weren't frustrated before, you may begin to focus on what you were deleting previously, and you may start to feel bad too. If someone asks you, "What's really lousy in your life?" then you may be compelled to answer regardless of how ridiculous the question is. If you don't answer it consciously, then the question can stick in your mind unconsciously. Conversely, if you're asked, "What's really great in your life?" and you keep focusing on the answer, you might find yourself feeling excellent immediately. If someone says, "You know, this project really is great. Have you ever thought about the impact we're going to have because of what we've created here?" You might become inspired by a project that seemed laborious. Questions are the laser of human consciousness. They concentrate our focus and determine what we feel and do. Stop for a moment, and as you look around the room, ask yourself a question. What in this room is brown? Look around and see it. Brown, brown, brown. Now, look down at this page. Blocking off your peripheral vision, think of everything that's green. If you're in a room you know very well, you can probably do this easily. But if you're in a strange room, chances are that you'll remember a lot more brown than green. So now look around and notice what's green, 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 green. Do you see more green this time? Again, if you're in an unfamiliar environment, I'm sure the answer is yes. What does this teach us? Whatever we look for, we'll find. So, if you're angry, one of the best things you could ask yourself is, how can I learn from this problem so that this never happens again? This is an example of a quality question, in that it will lead you from your current challenge to finding resources that keep you from having this pain in the future. Until you ask this question, you're deleting the possibility that this problem is really an opportunity. The power of presupposition. Questions have the power to affect our beliefs, and thus what we consider possible or impossible. As we learned in Chapter 4, asking penetrating questions can weaken the reference legs of disempowering beliefs, enabling us to dismantle them and replace them with more empowering ones. But did you realize that the specific words you select and the very order of the words that we use in a question can cause us to not even consider certain things while taking others for granted? This is known as the power of presupposition, something of which you should be very aware. Presuppositions program us to accept things that may or may not be true, and they can be used on us by others, or even subconsciously by ourselves. For example, if you ask yourself a question like, why do I always sabotage myself? After something ends disappointedly, you set yourself up for more of the same and set in motion a self-fulfilling prophecy. Why? Because, as we've already said, your brain will obediently come up with an answer for anything you ask of it. You'll take for granted that you've sabotaged things because you're focusing on why you do it, not on whether you do it. One example occurred during the 1988 presidential election, just after George Bush had announced Dan Quayle as his running mate. A television news organization conducted a nationwide poll asking people to call a 900 number to answer the question, does it bother you that Dan Quayle used his family's influence to go into the National Guard and stay out of Vietnam? The glaring presupposition built into this question, of course, was that Quayle had indeed used his family's influence to unfair advantage, something that had never been proven. Yet people responded to this if it were a given. They never questioned it and just automatically accepted it. Worse, many people called to say that they were extremely upset about this fact. No such fact was ever substantiated. Unfortunately, this process happens all too often. We do it to ourselves and to others all the time. Don't fall into the trap of accepting someone else's or your own disempowering presuppositions. Find references to back up new beliefs that empower you. Number 3, questions change the resources available to us. I arrived at a critical juncture in my life about 5 years ago when I came home from a grueling schedule on the road to discover that one of my business associates had embezzled $250,000 and run my company $758,000 into debt. The questions I failed to ask when I first hired this man had brought me to this point, and now my destiny hinged on the new questions I would ask. All of my advisors informed me that I had only one choice. I had to declare bankruptcy. They immediately started asking questions like, what should we sell off first? Who will tell the employees? But I refused to accept defeat. I resolved that whatever it took, I would find a way to keep my company going. I'm still in business today, not because of the great advice I got from those around me, but because I asked a better question. How can I turn this around? Then I asked an even more inspirational question. How can I turn my company around, take it to the next level, and cause it to have even more impact than it ever has in the past? I knew that if I asked a better question, I'd get a better answer. At first, I didn't get the answer I wanted. Initially it was, there is no way to turn it around. But I kept asking with intensity and expectation. I expanded my question to, how can I add even more value and help more people even while I sleep? How can I reach people in a way that is not limited to my physical presence? With these questions came the idea of my franchise operation in which more people could represent me across the country. Out of these same questions, a year later, I came up with the idea of producing a television infomercial, an answer that I had received from that same burning question. Since that time, we have created and distributed over 7 million tapes worldwide. Because I asked a question with intensity, I got an answer that's helped me develop relationships with people all over the world whom I would never have otherwise had a chance to meet, know, or touch in any way. In the realm of business, especially, questions do open up new worlds and give us access to resources we might not otherwise realize we have available. At Ford Motor Company, retired President Donald Peterson was known for his persistent questions. What do you think? How can your job be improved? On one occasion, Peterson asked a question that undoubtedly steered Ford's profitability up the road of success. He asked designer Jack Telnack, "Do you like the cars we are designing?" Telnack replied, "Actually, no, I don't." And then Peterson asked him the critical question, "Why don't you ignore management and design a car you'd love to own?" The designer took the president at his word and went on to work on the 1983 Ford Thunderbird, a car that inspired the later models of Taurus and Sable. By 1987, under the direction of master questioner Peterson, Ford had surpassed General Motors in profitability, and today Taurus ranks as one of the finest cars made. Donald Peterson is a great example of someone who really utilized the incredible power of questions. With one simple question, he completely changed the destiny of Ford Motor Company. You and I have that same power at our disposal every moment of the day. At any moment, the questions that we ask ourselves can shape our perception of who we are, what we're capable of, and what we're willing to do to achieve our dreams. Learning to consciously control the questions you ask will take you further to achieving your ultimate destiny than almost anything I know. Often our resources are limited only by the questions we ask ourselves. One important thing to remember is that our beliefs affect the questions we'll even consider. Many people would never have asked the question, "How can I turn things around?" simply because everyone around them had told them it was impossible. They would feel it was a waste of their time and energy. Be careful not to ask limited questions, or you'll receive limited answers. The only thing that limits your questions is your belief about what's possible. A core belief that has shaped my personal and professional destiny is that if I continue to ask any question, I will receive an answer. All we need to do is to create a better question, and we'll get a better answer. A metaphor I sometimes use is that life is just a Jeopardy game. All the answers are there. All you have to do is come up with the right questions to win.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Robbins, for teaching us how questions work and the power that they have. If you want to learn more and drill down into this subject, check in the description below for the link to the book, Awaken the Giant Within, by Tony Robbins. And you can order it on Amazon. The link will take you right to Amazon. If you haven't subscribed to Abundance Fountain channel yet, I hope you're finding some value here and you'll feel good about subscribing. Also click the notification bell and you'll find both of those icons below. And every time I do a new video, you'll get a chance to tune into the new information. And maybe the dog in the next video won't be barking. Who knows? Not that it really matters. At any rate, such a pleasure for me to be here with you and delivering to you this amazing information from these fantastic folks around the globe that have such good information for us to bring into our lives to help us enjoy a life of full abundance and get on the pathways to an abundant life. Until next time, take good care. Bye now.